Unfamiliar. Long ago, there was a sorcerer by the name of Bryce Striker, a satyr who has a bit too full of himself. Having just learnt how to attune to a familiar, he naturally wanted to try. Bryce went out into the wilds to find a perfect subject. He searched high and wide for one until he finally found it, the strong, hulky hippo. Before Bryce cast any spell of any kind of bonding on it, he decided to awaken it, for an even more awesome hippo power. When the spell landed on the hippo, it walked out of the water towards Bryce. Then it stood. "Who might you be?" said the hippo in a deep, slow tone. "Ah, Bryce! I am your new master. You will, you will be my familiar," declared Bryce, as he stood tall, not nearly as tall as the hippo, though. "I don't believe you can keep me. I am alive now. That not be much like slavery?" The hippo says back. After a long silence, the hippo begins to walk away. Bryce doesn't chase it. He's no fool. The hippo kept walking, enjoying the nature that it could never see before. Eventually, it decides to mimic travelers it saw along the journey and set up a tent to rest. It was no pre-built tent. It was a fine shelter made of leaves. The hippo had lots to think about, but he already figured out on his name, Jericho. A few days go by, and Jericho had been hard at work presenting himself. The first day, he had hunted some animals and took their pelts sewn to a shabby outfit. On the second day, he fashioned basic tools with stone. Jericho was advancing through the ages faster than humans could. Soon he found metals and such, either harvested from the earth or looted off bodies of fallen adventurers. After about a month, he had made electricity all over again. One day, Jericho comes across a body that's familiar to him, that of Bryce. Not hating him, Jericho takes the time to bury Bryce with a headstone, although Jericho leaves out one part, Bryce's right hand, which has a sigil on it, indicating his sorcerous origin. Jericho took the hand, believing it might have other properties, which was right. When investigating it at camp, he uncovers a pink gemstone that was embedded in the hand. It radiated with wild energy. Jericho figured he couldn't harvest the power easily, but with a poke of some wires, there was a result. Suddenly, he feels himself not there anymore. Looking at his body, he couldn't see his hands. He could still see the wires, however. So he prodded the gem again, this time in a slightly different spot. Instantly, Jericho felt a lot smaller. He could not move or speak. Jericho appeared as a potted flower. Just a few seconds after, he transformed back into Jericho. He got a spark of inspiration, having seen this. And over the next few hours, Jericho prodded every inch of the crystal, seeing what they do. Another month went by, and Jericho has went and made a magnum opus. It appears as a metallic sleeve, which wasn't very much at first, but upon flicking his arm down, Jericho's hand was enveloped by a dual-pronged magic cannon, big enough to fit snugly on a helicopter, or an 8-foot 9-inch hippo's hand. Jericho has no idea what a helicopter is. By striking the crystal in the cannon at certain points, it can elicit various kinds of magic. After Jericho's development, he traveled out farther than he ever had, not with the intent of recon, but with the intent of finding other people. Another month went by, and Jericho found himself in civilization. Most people found him rather odd being a walking hippo, but he didn't mind. Around the center of the city, Jericho was stopped by a voice, small and shrill, calling to him. "Hey, hippo guy! Check out what I got here!" Jericho looked at the source. It was a small gnome running a market stand on wheels. Just fruits and stuff, nothing grand. Jericho headed over, looking down at it all. With his large hand, he took a watermelon, one which had taken a few minutes just to put up there by the gnome. "May I have this?" Jericho asked, his voice inquisitive. "You can have it for 5 gold pieces. The good melon. We're steam farmers." The gnome tells Jericho, mischief in their eye. Jericho didn't know what a gold piece was. In his mind, a gold piece was very literal. A piece of gold, no matter how big or small. He reached into a pouch and took out 5 large hunks of gold jewelry, encrusted with gems and such. The gnome's eyes went wide at this jackpot, quickly scooping the gems and gold into a sack behind the counter. "Thank you, sucker! Have the cart!" they yelled. Jericho was now left with the cart and the fruit. He stayed to inspect it a bit further, then came to a conclusion. Money is good to have, buys goods and services. He would make more. Without much hesitation, he didn't take the cart, but he went to a local shop. He bought some various kinds of paints, repainting the sign of the cart. After a bit of hard handiwork, the sign became one for the mud pit. Jericho picked up the cart where the beast of burden would be pulling it and tugged it to the next town over. Over the years, Jericho sold things and made money to upgrade and outfit himself. He wears fine clothes with pieces of armor dotted about. A good amount of people came to know the mud pit. However, what he thought had to be his last journey began. He brought the mud pit into the kingdom of the dwarves. He expected them to welcome his services. They live in a mountain, for Christ's sakes. They can't get spices or herbs. However, when he set up and beat his drums he used to signify the opening of the shop, nobody seemed to care. He hollered about his goods, but they seemed annoyed at that. "Oi, baldy chin!" cried a dwarf, approaching the hippo. "We don't want to hear about your goods. Piss off or you get it." "I assure you, sir." Jericho put his hands up in surrender. "You want a piece of what I'm selling. Imagine, your mama makes a beef stew, but it tastes bland. Not anymore with this." Jericho pulled out a pouch labeled Cayenne, presented it to the dwarf. The dwarf snatched the bag, looked skeptical, and dipped a finger in and licked it. Immediately he began coughing and gagging. "First you insult me mama's stew, now you're trying to feed me fire. This hippo's killing us!" The dwarf calls out. Quickly, they all brandished their pickaxes, charging Jericho. "This won't be easy," mumbled Jericho as he flicked out his arm cannon, whirring with power. After a bloody few days, Jericho doesn't win, but he escapes, having lost his cart and a lot of his supplies. He just wanders anywhere he can. You know, the Dwarven Kingdom is a long and vast desert. Jericho can retain water and fat for days, so traveling the dunes shouldn't be hard. With a little hesitation, Jericho sets out for the desert. The winds were harsh, rapid, and brought pelting sand, not to mention how hot it was. Huh, Rapid. Sounds like a good surname. Jericho hadn't really considered a last name till now. Rapid sounds good. Jericho trod the desert for days, eventually setting up a place to live for the foreseeable future. A hippo-sized hut made of packed sand blocks, held together with water from the inside of the cacti. The heat was starting to get to Jericho, so much that when he heard the approaching steps in the sand, he believed them. Jericho stood up, looking around. "Who goes there?" Stayed on alert a bit longer, but after a few more steps, Jericho whipped around, flicked out his cannon, and shot the dunes, making a large explosion. He would have watched the explosion, though the smoke faded on the sandy winds. In the middle was a purple ball. The ball faded too, revealing a strong man with a graying beard and a goblin strapped like a pack mule. "Holy smokes, he's strong!" Gorch would cry out. "Who are you?" "We're the ears for hire. You're also looking for the strongest people. We're gonna ask you, but you seem rather strong yourself," John would reply. "A hero team? Anything other than this desert?" Jericho would approach them, as John leads them back through a portal to home base.